I called my son about his wedding date. My daughter-in-law answered, "We got married last weekend. Only special people were invited." 5 words that split my life into before and after. A week later, she called back. "Rent was due 3 days ago. Can you transfer the money?" I replied, "Am I special enough now?" Have you ever felt the exact moment your heart learns something your mind refuses to accept? My name is Ava Campbell. I'm 72 years old. I live in Jacksonville, Florida. And for 36 years, I thought I knew what it meant to be a mother. I was standing in my kitchen when I made the call. Tuesday afternoon. The light coming through the window was that soft golden kind that makes everything look gentle. I had my phone in one hand and a pen in the other, ready to write down the details. The save-the-date card had said October, but I needed specifics. Venue, time, what to wear, whether they needed help with anything. My son Ian answered on the 3rd ring. "Hey, Mom." "Hi, sweetheart. I was just calling about the wedding. October's coming up fast, and I wanted to make sure I had everything straight. What time should I be there? And is there anything you need me to?" "Mom." His voice changed. Went flat. "Hold on. Kim wants to talk to you." The phone rustled. Background noise. Then her voice came through, bright and sharp as glass. "Ava." "Yeah, about that. We got married last weekend. It was beautiful. Just a small thing at Jacksonville Beach." I stood there. My hand holding the pen went completely still. "You what?" "The wedding. We had it last Saturday. Gorgeous day. The sunset was perfect. We didn't want anything too big, you know. Just close family and friends, people who really matter to us." My mouth opened. Nothing came out. "We only invited special people." Kim continued like she was discussing the weather. "I'm sure you understand." The words hit me like I'd been shoved underwater. Special people. Who for 3 years had paid their monthly rent of $600 without a single missed payment. Who had bought every piece of furniture in their apartment from the couch to the coffee maker. Who had filled their refrigerator when they had nothing to eat, covered their car payment when they couldn't, co-signed their credit cards when no one else would. I was not a special person. "Mom, you still there?" Ian's voice distant, like he was calling from another planet. "I'm here." "Good. Listen, we got to run. Kim's mom is taking us to dinner to celebrate. I'll call you later, okay?" The line went dead. I stood in my kitchen holding a phone in one hand and a pen in the other. The golden light was still coming through the window. Nothing had changed in the room. Everything had changed in me. I looked down at the counter. There was the save-the-date card they'd sent 2 months ago. Cream-colored, elegant script, Ian and Kim's names intertwined. Below it sat the dress I'd bought specifically for the wedding. Navy blue, modest but beautiful. $250 I'd spent at the department store because I wanted to look nice for my son's big day. Next to the dress was an envelope. Inside was a check for $1,200. My wedding gift to them, money I'd been setting aside for months. My hands started shaking. I set the phone down slowly, carefully, like if I moved too fast, something inside me might break completely. They got married last weekend. Last weekend, while I was here in this kitchen making chicken soup because Ian had mentioned he wasn't feeling well. While I was writing out their rent check for October because I knew the 1st was coming up and they always needed it early. While I was planning what to say in my mother of the groom speech, practicing in front of the bathroom mirror. Last weekend, while I was doing all of that, they were getting married at Jacksonville Beach, and they didn't tell me. I sat down at the kitchen table. My legs wouldn't hold me anymore. 3 years. 3 years of supporting them. 3 years of sacrifice. I pulled my checkbook from the drawer. My hands were still shaking as I opened it. The numbers stared back at me, month after month of transfers, payments, gifts. $600 every single month for rent. $800 for the security deposit when they first moved in. $1,200 for their couch and dining table. $400 when their car broke down. $900 for Kim's dental emergency. $600 for their honeymoon fund, an actual honeymoon they apparently took without telling me they'd gotten married. 3 years of watching my savings shrink. 3 years of saying no to myself so I could say yes to them. I calculated it right there at the table. Every payment, every gift, Every emergency that somehow always became my emergency. $38,200. That's what special looked like. That's what love looked like. That's what being a mother looked like. $38,200. And I wasn't special enough to attend my own son's wedding. I thought about the life insurance money Thomas left me when he died 4 years ago. How I'd promised him I'd use it to travel, to finally see Europe like we'd always planned. How instead I'd watched it drain away month after month, funding Ian and Kim's life while mine got smaller and smaller. My phone buzzed. A notification. I picked it up. Social media. A post from someone I didn't recognize, one of Kim's relatives probably. I almost didn't click on it, but I did. The photo loaded slowly. A beach sunset, golden light spilling across the sand, and there they were. Ian in a gray suit, Kim in a white dress. Not just any white dress. The dress I'd given her $900 to buy 6 months ago when she said she was attending her cousin's wedding and needed something special. She'd lied. She was buying her own wedding dress. I scrolled through the album. There were dozens of photos. Kim's entire family was there. Her mother, her father, her 3 sisters, her aunts and uncles, her cousins. I counted at least 40 people in the group shots. Her father giving a toast. Her mother crying happy tears, her sisters surrounding Kim, laughing. This wasn't a small thing. This wasn't a spontaneous decision. This was a destination beach wedding. This required months of planning, venue coordination, vendor contracts, travel arrangements for dozens of people. They had planned this for months. They had known for months. And every single day of those months, they had looked at me and said nothing. I looked at the photos again. Really looked. Kim's dress, the dress I'd helped pay for, had intricate beading. Must have cost $3,000 at least. The venue was one of those upscale beachfront places. White chairs arranged in perfect rows, floral arrangements that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. There was a 3-tiered cake, a live band, champagne towers. This wedding cost money. Serious money. The kind of money they supposedly never had. The kind of money they always needed from me. I set the phone down. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't get enough air. Last weekend, while they were toasting champagne on the beach at sunset with 40 of their closest family and friends, I was here alone in this kitchen holding my phone, holding my checkbook, holding my stupid, foolish hope that I mattered to my son. The golden light through the window had shifted. It was darker now, grayer. I sat there for a long time. I don't know how long. And then I did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I cried, but they weren't tears of sadness. Not exactly. They were tears of anger, of accumulated frustration, of years of silently endured humiliation. I cried for all the times they made me feel that my love was a burden, my presence a hindrance, my money the only thing I had to offer. I cried for the woman I'd become, someone who confused generosity with love, payment with connection, financial support with maternal worth. I cried until I had nothing left. And then I stood up. I picked up that navy blue dress, the one I'd spent $250 on for a wedding I'd never attend, and I hung it in the back of my closet where I wouldn't have to look at it. I picked up that envelope with the $1,200 check, and I tore it into pieces. And I made a decision. No more. For exactly 1 week, I didn't call Ian. I didn't text. I didn't check on him. For exactly 1 week, my phone stayed silent. And then on day 8, my phone rang at 7 o'clock in the morning. Kim's voice came through before I even said hello. Ava, we have a problem. Rent was due 3 days ago, and we don't have it. The landlord is threatening eviction. We need you to transfer the money today. Actually, we needed it 3 days ago, but no. Silence. Ava, this isn't funny. We need $600 by noon or we're going to. Did you know, I interrupted, my voice steady and cold in a way I barely recognized, that I've paid your rent for 36 consecutive months? That's $21,600 just for rent. That doesn't include furniture, food, emergencies, gifts, or the $900 I gave you for a dress you wore to marry my son without inviting me. More silence. Listen, we can explain. You taught me something at your wedding, Kim. You showed me that only certain people deserve to be included in the important moments. I'm just applying what I learned. Ava, please. Am I special enough now? I could hear her trying to find words. She couldn't. You're being ridiculous. We're family. You can't just. Actually, Kim, I can. I can do exactly that. Because it's my money. My life insurance from my husband who died 4 years ago. My retirement money from 40 years of teaching. My money, not yours. Her voice went muffled. Ian, your mother has lost her mind. She's refusing to. Ian's voice came on, pleading, confused. Mom, what's going on? Kim says you won't help with rent. That's correct. But Mom, we need it. We don't have anywhere else to go. You can't just cut us off like this. Watch me. I hung up. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, from something else. Something that felt like power. The phone rang again immediately. I turned it off. I sat at my kitchen table and I thought about the last 3 years. Really thought about them. Not through the lens of what I wanted them to be, through the lens of what they actually were. I thought about the constant feeling of walking on eggshells. How every conversation was preceded by anxiety. Would they be angry? Would they need something? Would I say the wrong thing and risk losing the small scraps of attention they occasionally threw my way? I thought about how my phone calls went straight to voicemail unless they needed money. How they never asked how I was doing. How they never visited unless it coincided with a request. I thought about Christmas last year, how I'd spent $400 on gifts for them, how they'd shown up 2 hours late, stayed for 30 minutes, and left without giving me anything, not even a card. Kim had said they were too broke to exchange gifts this year. 2 weeks later, I saw photos on social media of their weekend trip to Orlando. I thought about my birthday in July. How I'd waited all day for a call that never came. How at 9 p.m. Ian had texted, "Sorry, crazy day. Happy birthday, Mom." That was it. 10 words. I opened my checkbook again. I'd calculated the total before, but now I went through it differently. I categorized everything. Rent, $21,600. Furniture, $3,400. Car-related expenses, $2,800. Food and groceries, $4,100. Medical/dental, $1,900. Credit card payments, $2,200. Gifts and holidays, $600. Emergencies, $600. Total, $38,200. I stared at that number for a long time. $38,200. That was almost half of Thomas's life insurance policy. Money he'd worked his entire life to provide. Money that was supposed to secure my future. Money that was supposed to let me finally rest after 40 years of teaching other people's children. Instead, I'd spent it financing the present of my son and his wife. A son and wife who had just thrown a destination beach wedding complete with 40 guests, professional photography, live band, and champagne while claiming they couldn't afford $600 in monthly rent. The math didn't add up. It never had. I'd just been too afraid to do the calculation. That afternoon my phone, which I'd finally turned back on, buzzed with a text from Ian. "Mom, please. We really need to talk. This isn't like you." I stared at those words. This isn't like you. He was right. This wasn't like me. The old me would have already transferred the money. The old me would have apologized for making them worry. The old me would have justified their behavior, blamed myself, tried harder to be the mother they needed. But something had broken inside me when Kim said those 5 words. Only special people were invited. Something fundamental had cracked. And now I was looking at my life through that crack and seeing it clearly for the first time. I didn't respond to the text. That night, I lay in bed and I cried again. But this time, I understood what I was crying for. I was mourning the fantasy, the beautiful illusion I'd built where my son loved me the way I loved him, where my generosity was met with gratitude, where my sacrifices meant something more than a balance in a checking account. I was mourning the mother-son relationship I'd thought we had, the one where he called just to talk, where he wanted my advice, where he valued my presence for reasons that had nothing to do with my bank account. That relationship had never existed. I'd paid for a performance of it, and they'd been happy to perform as long as the checks cleared. The next morning, I woke up different. I made coffee. I sat at my kitchen table. I looked around my small, quiet house. For 3 years, this house had felt like a waiting room. A place I existed between their calls, their needs, their crises. My life had become secondary, background noise, a resource to be extracted when necessary. I was 72 years old. My husband was dead. My son was a stranger. And I had spent $38,200 learning what should have been obvious. Love cannot be purchased. And what can be bought with money was never love to begin with. I picked up my phone. I had 17 missed calls and 23 text messages, all from Ian and Kim, all demanding, pleading, threatening, bargaining. I deleted every single one without reading them. And then I got dressed, not in old comfortable clothes I usually wore, but in a nice blouse and slacks. I did my makeup. I looked at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back at me had something in her eyes I hadn't seen in years. Resolve. I was done being an ATM with feelings. I was done financing the illusion of love. Today, I was going to start living my own life. Finally, for the first time since Thomas died, maybe for the first time ever. I grabbed my purse and my car keys. It was time to build some walls. I went for a walk that morning. Not to the bank, not to the grocery store, not running errands for Ian and Kim. Just a walk because I wanted to. I couldn't remember the last time I'd done that. Walked with no purpose except to walk. To feel the sun. To exist without obligation. The neighborhood was quiet. People were at work. The streets were empty except for a few cars passing by. I walked past houses I'd seen 1,000 times but never really looked at. Noticed flowers in yards, paint colors, wind chimes. I thought about my son, not the man he was now, the boy he used to be. When did it change? When did my sweet son, the one who used to make me Mother's Day cards and call me the best mom in the world, become this man who treats me like an ATM with feelings? Or had he always been this way and I'd just chosen not to see it? I thought back over the years, really examined them. Ian had always been my whole world. After Thomas died, he was all I had left. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe I'd held on too tight, given too much. Taught him that my love had no limits and no cost to him. Maybe I'd trained him to use me. That thought sat heavy in my chest. I walked for over an hour. When I got home, I felt lighter, clearer. I picked up my phone and called the bank. National Bank, this is Mr. Harris speaking. Hello, Mr. Harris. This is Ava Campbell. I need to cancel all automatic transfers from my accounts. Silence. Mrs. Campbell, may I ask, is everything all right? Everything is fine. I just need to make some changes to my accounts. Of course. Let me pull up your information. I heard typing. I see you have one recurring transfer set up. $600 monthly to an account under Ian Campbell's name. You'd like to cancel that? Yes. And would you like to set up any fraud alerts or additional security measures? I only ask because... Yes, I interrupted. I want to make sure no one can access my accounts without my explicit approval. More typing. Mrs. Campbell, I have to tell you I've handled your accounts for 3 years now. I've watched that monthly transfer go out like clockwork. I'm glad you're making this change. His words surprised me. What do you mean? I mean, he paused, choosing words carefully. You've been taking care of everyone else. It's about time someone took care of you. Even if that someone has to be you. I felt my throat tighten. Thank you, Mr. Harris. No thanks needed. I'll have these changes processed within the hour. And Mrs. Campbell, if anyone tries to contest these changes or claims they have authorization, they'll have to go through me personally. I'll make sure of it. When I hung up, I realized Mr. Harris, a man I'd spoken to maybe 6 times in 3 years, had shown more genuine concern for my well-being than my own son. My phone started ringing. And then Kim, then Ian again. They had radar for when their source of income was in danger. I let it ring. That afternoon, I did something else I hadn't done in over a year. I went to the beauty salon. Linda, my stylist, looked surprised when I walked in. Ava. Oh my goodness. How long has it been? Too long. Well, let's fix that. What are we doing today? I looked at her in the mirror. Everything. Cut, color, the works. She smiled. Now we're talking. While she worked, we chatted. Normal things, the weather, local news, her daughter's soccer games. She didn't ask me for money. She didn't need anything from me except pleasant conversation. It felt like breathing fresh air after being underground. You look different today, Linda said, applying color to my roots. I can't quite put my finger on it, but free. You look free. I said. I finally am. When I left the salon 3 hours later, I barely recognized myself. My hair was shorter, lighter. I looked younger, happier. I looked like myself. I drove home feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Something that felt dangerously close to joy. But when I pulled onto my street, that feeling evaporated. There were 3 cars parked in front of my house. One was Ian's, one was Kim's, and one was a silver sedan I didn't recognize. All 3 were in my driveway. I sat in my car for a moment, my hands gripping the steering wheel. Then I took a deep breath, grabbed my purse, and walked to my front door. It was unlocked. I pushed it open. Ian, Kim, and a man in a suit were sitting at my kitchen table. They had papers spread out in front of them. They were going through my documents, my personal papers, bank statements, insurance policies, my will. They were in my house going through my private papers without permission, without even asking. Kim looked up first. Oh good. You're finally home. We need to talk. The man in the suit stood, extended his hand. Mrs. Campbell, I'm Dr. Foster. I'm a family law attorney. Your son and daughter-in-law have asked me to help mediate this situation. I didn't shake his hand. Get out of my house. Kim's face flickered with surprise. Ava, don't be dramatic. We're here because we're worried about you. Worried? I looked at the papers spread across my table, at my private documents in their hands. You broke into my house. You're going through my personal papers. That's not worry. That's violation. We have keys, Ian said quietly. You gave them to us, remember? For emergencies. This isn't an emergency. Actually, it is, Dr. Foster said, his voice smooth and practiced. Your son and daughter-in-law are concerned about your mental well-being. Your recent behavior has been erratic, cutting off financial support with no warning, refusing to answer calls, installing security systems. These are signs that you may need help. I stared at him. Help? Yes. Professional help, which is why I'm here. We think it would be in everyone's best interest if you signed some temporary paperwork giving Ian limited power of attorney, just for financial matters, just until we can get you evaluated by a professional and ensure you're making sound decisions. He slid a document across the table toward me. I looked at it, then at Ian, then at Kim, and then I understood. This was their plan. Declare me mentally incompetent. Take control of my finances. Make it legal. You want me to sign power of attorney? Just temporary, Ian said quickly. Just so we can help you, Mom. You're not thinking clearly right now. Actually, I said, my voice deadly calm, I'm thinking more clearly than I have in 3 years. I walked to the table, picked up the document, read it. It wasn't temporary. It was permanent. It would give Ian complete control over my bank accounts, my investments, my house, everything. I looked at my son. You're trying to steal my money. Mom, that's not. You're trying to legally steal my money. After I gave you $38,200 over 3 years. After I paid for everything while you couldn't afford rent. After you got married at a beach wedding without inviting me and then called me dramatic for being hurt. Kim stood up. This is exactly what we're talking about. You're being paranoid. Irrational. I'm being clear-eyed. Finally, I picked up the papers. All of them. My bank statements, my insurance policies, my will, the power of attorney document, and I walked to the trash can. I dropped everything in. The whole stack. Get out. Mrs. Campbell, Dr. Foster started. You're trespassing. You had no right to enter my home. You had no right to access my documents, and you have no right to try to manipulate me into signing away my autonomy. We're your family, Kim shouted. You owe us. I owe you. I turned to face her fully. I owe you what? More rent money, more furniture money, more money for dresses and vacations and a lifestyle you can't afford. You have obligations, Ian stood now too. The rent, the car payments, the credit cards you co-signed, those are your obligations, not mine. I didn't use that credit card. I didn't drive that car. I didn't sign that lease. You can't just cut us off. Watch me. Kim's face went hard. You're going to regret this. We'll make sure of it. Is that a threat? It's a promise. You think you can just walk away? Everything you have will belong to us one day anyway. We're just speeding up the process. There it was. The naked, unvarnished truth. Everything I had would one day belong to them. In their minds, I was already dead. They were just collecting their inheritance in advance. Get out of my house, all of you, right now. You're making a mistake, Dr. Foster said, gathering his briefcase. This won't end well for you. It'll end very badly, Ian added, his voice low. You're choosing to do this alone. You'll end up alone. I walked to the front door, open it wide. I'm already alone. You made sure of that years ago. Now I'm just making it official. They walked out. All three of them. Dr. Foster first, professionally neutral. Then Kim, who gave me a look of pure hatred. Then Ian, who wouldn't meet my eyes. I closed the door behind them, and I stood there in the silence. It was the most beautiful silence I had heard in years. It was the silence of freedom. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not from anxiety, from adrenaline. I kept replaying the scene in my kitchen. Their faces, their words. The papers spread across my table like they already owned everything. Everything you have will belong to us one day anyway. Kim's words echoed in my head. I got up at 2 o'clock in the morning, made tea, sat at that same kitchen table where they'd been going through my private documents just hours before. I thought about what Dr. Foster had said, about erratic behavior, about needing help, about not thinking clearly. They were going to try to have me declared mentally incompetent. That's what this was. That's what the attorney was for. If I wouldn't give them my money willingly, they'd take it legally. I sat there in the dark sipping tea, and I made a plan, like a general preparing for battle. The next morning at 8 a.m., I called Mr. Parker's office. Mr. Parker specialized in elder law. His ad in the phone book said he protected seniors' rights. I'd never needed that before. I needed it now. His secretary put me through immediately. Mrs. Campbell, how can I help you? I told him everything. The wedding, the money, the papers, Dr. Foster, the threats. When I finished, there was a long pause. Mrs. Campbell, what you're describing is called elder financial abuse. It's a federal crime. Crime? Yes. Your son and daughter-in-law have systematically exploited you for money, and now they're attempting to gain legal control of your assets through manipulation and false claims of incompetence. That's elder abuse. I never thought of it that way. Abuse. What do I do? First, we document everything. Every payment, every conversation, every threat. Second, we protect your assets immediately. Third, we prepare for the possibility that they'll try to file for guardianship. Guardianship. Legal guardianship, where they claim you're mentally incompetent to manage your own affairs and petition a court to give them control. Based on what you've told me, that's their next move. My stomach dropped. Can they do that? They can try. Whether they'll succeed is another matter, but we need to be ready. We spent 3 hours on the phone. Mr. Parker asked detailed questions about every transaction, every conversation, every interaction. He had me pull out my checkbook, my bank statements, everything. When I told him the total, $38,200, he was quiet for a long moment. Mrs. Campbell, with that money you could have lived comfortably, traveled, enjoyed your retirement. Instead, you funded their lifestyle while they excluded you from their lives. I was trying to be a good mother. You were being exploited. There's a difference. By the end of the call, we had a plan. Step 1. Change all the locks on my house immediately. Step 2. Install security cameras. Step 3. Open new bank accounts at a different bank where they had no history. Step 4. Document everything going forward. Step 5. Start living my life instead of funding theirs. That last one is important, Mr. Parker said. Start doing things for yourself. Classes, activities, social engagements. Build a life that shows you're active, engaged, and mentally sharp. If they try to claim incompetence, we need witnesses who can testify otherwise. I can do that. Good. And Mrs. Campbell, I want you to know something. What you're doing, standing up for yourself, isn't selfish. It's self-preservation. After we hung up, I sat with those words. Self-preservation. I'd spent 3 years preserving Ian and Kim's lifestyle. Maybe it was time to preserve myself. I called the hardware store, ordered new locks for all the doors. The owner, Mr. Turner, said he could install them this afternoon. Then I called a security company, explained I needed cameras installed around my property. The technician, Marcus, said he could come tomorrow morning. You'll want cameras on all entrances, he suggested. Front door, back door, garage, and one on the driveway so you can see who comes and goes. Perfect. These were investments in my home, in my safety and myself. Not in Ian and Kim's rent. Not in their furniture. Not in their lifestyle. In me. That afternoon, while Mr. Turner installed the new locks, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered anyway. Ava, it's Kim. Her voice was different, softer, almost sweet. Listen, I think we got off on the wrong foot yesterday. Ian and I were talking and we realized we may have come on too strong. We just love you so much and we're worried about you. I said nothing. We'd really like to make this right. How about we come over for dinner this weekend? Nothing formal, just us. We can celebrate our wedding with you like we should have from the beginning. Would you like that? Kim, why didn't you invite me to your wedding? Silence. It was complicated. The venue had limited capacity. And how many people were there? What? At your wedding? How many people? Maybe 40. Ava, that's not the point. 40 people, but not me. Listen, we can explain everything if you just. Are you still behind on rent? Another pause. Longer this time. We're working on it. So you're calling because you need money? No, we're calling because we love you and miss you, Kim. In 3 years, how many times have you called me without needing something? That's not fair. How many? She didn't answer. You know what I realized? I said quietly. You and Ian never call unless you need money. Not once have you called just to talk, just to ask how I'm doing, just because you wanted to hear my voice. That's not true. Then prove it. How am I doing, Kim? What's been going on in my life? What have I been up to the last 3 years while you were too busy spending my money? Silence. You don't know because you never asked. Ava, please. We really need. You need money. That's what this call is really about. That's what every call is really about. We're family. No, Kim. We're not family. Family doesn't exclude you from weddings. Family doesn't break into your house. Family doesn't threaten you when you stop handing over cash. For 3 years you treated me like an ATM with feelings. You used me. You ignored me. You humiliated me. And now that the money stopped, you suddenly remember you love me. Ian really wants to. I'm done, Kim. I'm done being used. I'm done being manipulated. I'm done financing a relationship that only exists when I'm paying for it. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from liberation. Mr. Turner looked up from the door lock he was installing. You okay? Yeah, I said. I really am. He nodded. Good locks here. Nobody's getting in without your permission. That's exactly what I need. When he finished, I tested every door. Locked, secure, mine. For the first time in 3 years, my home felt like it actually belonged to me. When I got home, my new security cameras were installed. Marcus showed me how to use the app on my phone. See, you can check any camera from anywhere. Front door, back door, driveway, garage. You'll get notifications if there's any movement. This is perfect. Thank you. My pleasure, Mrs. Campbell. You stay safe now. After he left, I stood in my kitchen, my house, with locks that only I had keys to, with cameras that showed me exactly who came near my property. My house, my rules, my life. I heard a knock at the door. The camera notification popped up on my phone. I looked at the screen. Eleanor Brooks, my neighbor from 2 houses down. I opened the door. Ava. Hi. I hope I'm not bothering you. Not at all. Come in. Eleanor hesitated. I actually wanted to check if you were okay. I heard some very loud voices the other day and I saw some people at your house who looked upset. I gestured to the kitchen table. Would you like some coffee? That would be lovely. While I made coffee, Eleanor sat quietly. When I brought the cups to the table and sat down, she looked at me with kind eyes. Are you all right? And for some reason, maybe because she was a neighbor and not family, maybe because she was asking without wanting anything, I told her everything. The wedding, the money, the papers, the threats, all of it. When I finished, Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. I know exactly what you're going through. You do. She nodded. My daughter did something similar to me 5 years ago. Different details, same pattern. She borrowed money constantly, never paid it back, treated me like a bank. When I finally said no, she tried to have me declared incompetent. Said I was confused, losing my memory, needed help. My chest tightened. What happened? I fought back. Got a lawyer, proved I was perfectly fine. The judge saw right through her claims. She lost and she was furious. Eleanor paused. We didn't speak for 6 months. But you know what? After that 6 months, she called. Really called. Apologized. Said she'd been wrong. Said she'd spent that time in therapy figuring out why she'd treated me that way. And now we have a real relationship based on love, not money. It's not perfect, but it's genuine. Sometimes people need to lose access to you to realize your value. I felt tears sting my eyes. I just wanted to be a good mother. You were. You are. But being a good mother doesn't mean letting yourself be used. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is set boundaries. We talked for over an hour about family, about guilt, about the difference between helping and enabling. When Eleanor left, she hugged me at the door. You're going to be okay, Ava. Actually, you're going to be better than okay. You're going to be free. That night, I slept better than I had in years. I didn't wake up at 2 a.m. worrying about whether Ian and Kim had money for groceries. I didn't stress about next month's rent. I didn't compulsively check my phone for emergency texts. I slept deeply, peacefully. The next morning, my sister Grace called from Atlanta. Ava, what the hell is going on? Ian just called me asking if I could talk some sense into you. I took a breath. Grace, I need to tell you something and I need you to really listen. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet. Gracie, I should have said something years ago, she said finally. I should have told you what I saw. What do you mean? Ian never talked about you lovingly. Not once in all the times I saw him. It was always transactional. My mom helped me with this. My mom paid for that. Never I love my mom or my mom is amazing. Just what you did for him. My throat tightened. And Kim, Grace continued, her voice hardening. Kim talked about you in future tense. When Ava is gone, we'll do this. After Ava passes, we'll have that. Like she was waiting, planning, counting down to when you die so she could have your money. I closed my eyes. Why didn't you tell me? Because you were so happy when Ian called. So grateful when he visited. I didn't want to take that away from you. I thought maybe I was being too harsh. Maybe I was wrong. She paused. But I wasn't wrong, was I? No, you weren't. Good. Then I'm saying now what I should have said years ago. Cut them off completely. Protect yourself. And don't you dare feel guilty about it. I'm trying. Don't try. Do it. Ava, you have given enough. You have sacrificed enough. You have paid enough. It's time to live your life for you. After we hung up, I sat in my quiet house, my locked house, my protected house, my house, and I made myself a promise. I was done living my life on hold, waiting for scraps of affection from people who only valued my checkbook. I was 72 years old. If Thomas were still alive, he'd be horrified by what I'd let happen to the money he left me, the money he worked his whole life to provide, the money that was supposed to give me security and freedom. Instead, I'd used it to buy an illusion. But now, finally, I was waking up and I was done dreaming. 3 days passed. Strange, peaceful days. I joined the garden club that met at the community center every Tuesday. I went to the farmer's market on Saturday morning. I bought fresh flowers for my kitchen table, not because anyone was coming over, just because I wanted to look at something beautiful. I was living. Actually living. But my security cameras told a different story. Ian and Kim drove past my house 11 times in those 3 days. I watched on my phone as their car slowed in front of my driveway, paused, then drove on. They were circling, watching, planning their next move. Mr. Parker had warned me about this. They're going to escalate, he'd said. When financial abusers lose access to their source, they don't just walk away. They get desperate. On Friday morning, someone knocked on my door. The camera showed a woman in a gray pantsuit holding a clipboard. I opened the door but kept the chain lock engaged. Mrs. Campbell, I'm Mrs. Johnson from the Office of Elder Services. I'm here to conduct a wellness check. My stomach dropped. A wellness check? Yes. We received a report of concern about your well-being. May I come in? Who filed the report? I'm not at liberty to say, but the complaint indicates you may be at risk. There are concerns about significant changes in your financial behavior, cutting off communication with family members, and displaying signs of paranoia such as installing unnecessary security systems. Every word was carefully chosen. Every word designed to make me sound like a confused old woman losing her grip on reality. I recognized Kim's careful wording behind every sentence. I need to call my attorney before I answer any questions. Mrs. Johnson's expression shifted. Mrs. Campbell, if you're refusing to cooperate, that itself can be seen as, I'm not refusing to cooperate. I'm exercising my legal right to have representation present. Please wait here. I closed the door and called Mr. Parker. He arrived within 20 minutes. When I opened the door again, Mrs. Johnson looked surprised to see him. Mr. Parker, I didn't realize you'd be involved. Mrs. Campbell is my client. I protect elderly individuals from exploitation and false claims of incompetence. He smiled, but it wasn't friendly. Shall we? We sat in my living room. Mrs. Johnson pulled out her forms. Mrs. Campbell, can you tell me about the recent changes in your financial habits? Mr. Parker interrupted. Before my client answers anything, I'd like you to review this documentation. He handed her a folder. Inside was everything. Bank statements showing the $38,200 in transfers over 3 years, the wedding exclusion, the unauthorized entry into my home, Dr. Foster's attempted coercion. Mrs. Johnson read through it slowly. Her expression changed with each page. I see. Do you? Mr. Parker leaned forward. Because what you should see is a clear pattern of elder financial abuse. Mrs. Campbell's son and daughter-in-law systematically drained her resources for 3 years. When she finally set boundaries, they broke into her home with an attorney and tried to coerce her into signing over power of attorney. Now they've filed a false complaint with your office, hoping to intimidate her into resuming financial support. Mrs. Johnson looked at me, really looked at me. Mrs. Campbell, are you under any duress, only from the people who filed this complaint? Do you feel you're able to manage your own affairs completely? I manage my household, my finances, my social life. I'm active in my community. I have good relationships with my neighbors. The only people claiming I'm incompetent are the 2 people who are financially benefiting from my support. She made notes, looked through the documentation again, and the security cameras. After my son and his wife broke into my home without permission, I installed security to protect my property. That's not paranoia. That's basic safety. Mrs. Johnson closed her folder. Mrs. Campbell, based on what I've seen here today, I find no indication that you're at risk or in need of intervention. You appear to be in full command of your faculties, managing your home independently, and making rational decisions about your finances and relationships. Relief washed through me. However, she continued, looking at Mr. Parker, I am obligated to note the concerning pattern of exploitation documented here. I'll be filing my own report recommending investigation into potential elder abuse. After she left, Mr. Parker and I sat in silence for a moment. They're not going to stop, I said quietly. No, they're not. He looked at me seriously. Ava, they're spending money they don't have to hire people to fight you. Dr. Foster doesn't work cheap. Filing false complaints, hiring attorneys. This costs money. Money they supposedly don't have. So where are they getting it? Credit cards probably. Or they found another funding source. Either way, they're committed to this fight. He paused. Which means they're going to take the next step. What's the next step? They're going to file a formal petition for guardianship in court, with lawyers and experts and testimony. They're going to try to legally prove you're incompetent. The words hit me like a physical blow. My own son is going to try to have me declared legally incompetent. Yes. I sat with that reality. My son, the baby I'd carried, the child I'd raised, the man I'd supported for 3 years with every penny I could spare, was going to stand in a courtroom and tell a judge that his mother had lost her mind. All for money. What do I do? You fight. And you win. Mr. Parker's voice was firm. We document everything. We build an airtight case. We show the judge exactly what this is, a financial grab disguised as concern. Will it work? If you're willing to fight? Yes. But Ava, he looked at me carefully, you need to understand what this means. This is going to get ugly. They're going to say terrible things about you in court. They're going to try to make you look confused, incompetent, unstable. They're going to twist every action you've taken to make it sound like mental decline. I understand. And even if you win, when you win, your relationship with Ian will be over permanently. There's no coming back from this. I thought about that. Really thought about it. Mr. Parker, the relationship was over the moment Kim said I wasn't special enough to invite to their wedding. Maybe it was over years before that. I've just been paying to pretend it still existed. He nodded. Then let's get ready for war. That night, I called Grace. They filed a false report with Elder Services. What? I told her about Mrs. Johnson, the wellness check, the claims of paranoia and incompetence. Grace was quiet for a long moment. Then she laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You know what's amazing? They're spending all this money on lawyers, on filing fees, on expert witnesses. Money they supposedly don't have, all to get access to your money. Do you see the irony? I did. God help me, I did. If they could afford Dr. Foster and court fees and all of this, they could afford their own rent. They'd never needed my money. They just wanted it. The next day, Eleanor knocked on my door. I heard what happened with the social worker. She shook her head. Honey, I've been talking to some friends. We want to help. How did you hear about? Small neighborhood. Word travels. She smiled. Come over tonight, 6 o'clock. I'm having some people over who want to meet you. That evening, I walked to Eleanor's house 2 doors down. Inside were 5 women sitting in her living room with coffee and cookies. Eleanor introduced them. This is Linda from the salon, Maria and Carmen from the garden club, and Dorothy. She lives on Maple Street. Dorothy was tiny, wrinkled, and had eyes like steel. She looked about 80 years old. Sit down, dear, she said. Let's hear your story. I told them everything again. The wedding, the money, the threats, the lawsuit that was coming. When I finished, Maria spoke first. My brother did something similar to me 10 years ago. Borrowed money constantly, never paid it back. When I said no, he told everyone in the family I was being selfish and cruel. Carmen nodded. My daughter cleaned out my savings account when I gave her access to help pay my bills after my hip surgery. $20,000 gone. She said I must have spent it and forgotten. Linda set down her coffee cup. My son used to visit every month like clockwork. I thought we had such a close relationship. Then I stopped giving him money for his business ventures. Haven't heard from him in 3 years. Dorothy folded her hands in her lap. My grandson told me I was too old to manage my own money and I should sign everything over to him, for my own protection, he said. When I refused, he tried to have me committed to a nursing home. I stared at these women. All of them. All of them had similar stories. What did you do? I asked Dorothy. I fought. Hired a lawyer, proved I was perfectly competent. The judge threw out the petition and told my grandson to be ashamed of himself. She smiled. Haven't spoken to him since. Best decision I ever made. Don't you miss him? Miss him? Dorothy laughed. Honey, I never had him. I had the illusion of him. The performance he gave when he thought he'd inherit my money. Once I understood that, there was nothing to miss. Carmen leaned forward. Ava, what hurts isn't losing the money. What hurts is realizing you never had the love you thought you had. Tears stung my eyes. Yes, exactly that. But here's what you learn, Maria said gently. Real love doesn't have a price tag. Real love doesn't come with conditions. Real love doesn't evaporate the moment you stop funding it. Linda nodded. What you lost wasn't love. It was a transaction. And transactions end. Eleanor squeezed my shoulder. What you're going through right now, it's awful. It's painful. It's going to get worse before it gets better. But on the other side of this, you're going to be free. Really free. Dorothy raised her coffee cup. To freedom. To boundaries. To women who refuse to be ATMs. We all raised our cups. To freedom. I looked around at these women. Women I barely knew. Women who owed me nothing. Women who were showing up for me anyway. Real community. Real support. Not because I paid them, because they understood. For the first time in weeks, I felt something besides anger and grief. I felt hope. After everyone left, Eleanor walked me to the door. We meant what we said, Ava. When this goes to court, we'll all testify for you. We've all been through it. We know what to say and how to say it. Why are you helping me? Because someone helped me when I needed it. Because women like us need to protect each other. And because, she smiled, you deserve better than what they gave you. I hugged her hard. Walking home under the streetlights, I thought about the $38,200 I'd spent on Ian and Kim. I'd bought attention, not love. I'd financed an illusion. But these women, they were giving me something real, something that couldn't be purchased. They were giving me solidarity. That night, I sat in my garden. The stars were bright overhead. Or maybe I was just seeing them with clearer eyes. For the first time in my adult life, I was completely financially independent. No one depended on me. No one had claims on my money. Every dollar I had was mine to spend or save or donate or waste as I saw fit. Freedom tasted like hope. I made a list of things I wanted to do. Things I'd postponed for years while financing Ian and Kim's present. Travel to Europe like Thomas and I had planned. Take art classes. Remodel my bathroom. Buy nice clothes. Donate to charities that mattered to me. Invest in my future instead of someone else's present. The list felt like possibility. I was 72 years old. If I was lucky, I had another 10 or 15 good years ahead of me. I was done spending them on people who only valued my checkbook. A month passed. I fell into a routine that felt startlingly like a real life. Tuesdays were garden club. Thursdays I had coffee with Eleanor. Saturdays I went to the farmer's market. I'd started painting watercolors. Nothing fancy, just colors and shapes that made me happy. I was learning what it felt like to live for myself. And then Mr. Parker called. They filed. I knew what he meant. I'd been expecting it, but hearing the words still felt like a punch to the stomach. The guardianship petition? Yes. Family court. Judge Brown presiding. They're requesting a competency hearing. He paused. Ava, they've built a case. They have witnesses, statements. A psychiatrist who's willing to testify that refusing evaluation indicates mental decline. What witnesses? Kim, obviously. A neighbor named Mr. Davis who lives across the street from you. And your pharmacist, Mr. Wallace. Mr. Wallace? The sweet man who'd been filling my prescriptions for 10 years? That doesn't make sense. They manipulated him. Got him to sign a statement claiming he's concerned about your medication management. We need to talk to him before the hearing. That afternoon, we went to the pharmacy. Mr. Wallace looked up when we walked in. His face went pale. Mrs. Campbell, I didn't know. What did they tell you? I asked gently. He glanced around the empty pharmacy, lowered his voice. Your daughter-in-law came in 3 weeks ago. Said she was worried about you. Said you were taking medications incorrectly, mixing things up, forgetting doses. She asked if I'd noticed anything concerning. He looked miserable. She seemed genuinely worried. I told her I hadn't noticed anything, but if she wanted me to sign a statement for your doctor about your medication history, I would. I thought it was for insurance purposes or something medical. Did you read what you signed? I know. She said it was just confirming the medications you're on. I trusted her. Mr. Parker pulled out a document. This is what you actually signed. It states that you have ongoing concerns about Mrs. Campbell's mental competency based on observable confusion about her medications. Mr. Wallace read it. His face went from pale to red. That's not what I said. That's not what I meant. He looked at me. Mrs. Campbell, I am so sorry. You've never once been confused about your medications. Never once had an issue. This is a complete misrepresentation. Will you write a correcting statement? Immediately. He did. Right there. A full page explaining exactly what happened and stating clearly that I was perfectly competent in managing my medications and had never shown any signs of confusion or cognitive decline. We thanked him and left. Next was Mr. Davis, the neighbor. We walked across the street to his house. He answered the door, already scowling. What do you want? Mr. Davis, I understand you're testifying against me in court. Testifying for your own good. Someone needs to protect you from yourself. What have you observed that concerns you? You put up cameras like you're in a fortress. Strange people coming and going at all hours. I saw you having an argument in your own driveway. Erratic behavior. The cameras were installed after my son broke into my home without permission. The strange people are my friends from the garden club. And the argument was me telling my son to leave when he showed up uninvited, trying to pressure me into signing legal documents. That's not how it looked from where I was standing. Mr. Parker stepped forward. Mr. Davis, are you aware that making false statements in a court proceeding is perjury? I'm not making false statements. I'm reporting what I saw. You're reporting selective observations without context and drawing conclusions about mental competency without any medical expertise or direct interaction with Mrs. Campbell. I know what I saw. It was pointless. Mr. Davis had already decided I was a confused old woman, and nothing we said would change that. We left. In the car, Mr. Parker was quiet for a moment. The pharmacist's statement helps. We'll submit his correction and discredit that witness completely. Mr. Davis is going to look biased and superficial on the stand. But, Ava, they also have a psychiatrist, Dr. Patterson. He's going to testify that your refusal to undergo psychiatric evaluation is itself evidence of declining mental function. That's insane. It's strategy. But we have a counter-strategy. He smiled. Dr. Reynolds. Dr. Reynolds was a psychiatrist who specialized in evaluating mental competency in older adults. I met with her for 2 hours the following week. She asked me hundreds of questions. My medical history, my education, my work history, my daily routines, my finances. She had me solve math problems, recall word lists, draw shapes, answer logic puzzles. At the end, she closed her notebook and smiled. Mrs. Campbell, your cognitive function is well above average for your age. You're sharp, articulate, and clearly capable of managing your own affairs. Not only are you competent, you're excellent. Relief flooded through me. You're sure? Completely. What you're experiencing isn't mental decline. It's elder financial exploitation. And unfortunately, it's more common than most people realize. She paused. I'll testify to all of this in court. Your son and daughter-in-law are going to have a very hard time proving you're incompetent when the evidence clearly shows you're not. When I left her office, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Confidence. I could fight this. I could win this. Mr. Parker was right. This was going to get ugly, but I was ready. Eleanor organized an emergency meeting when she heard about the court date. All the women came, Maria, Linda, Carmen, Dorothy. They sat in Eleanor's living room with the fierce determination of people who'd been through this battle before. We're all testifying, Dorothy announced. No arguments. You don't have to. We want to, Maria interrupted. Honey, we've all been where you are. We know how lonely it feels. We're not letting you fight this alone. Linda nodded. Besides, we're perfect witnesses. We're rational, coherent, active in the community, and we've all spent significant time with you over the past 2 months. We can testify that you're completely mentally competent. Carmen smiled. And we're old. Judges take us seriously. Dorothy laughed at that. It's true. When an 81-year-old woman tells a judge that someone is being financially exploited, they listen. Mr. Parker had already prepared them. They knew what questions to expect, how to answer clearly, what details to emphasize. The key is specificity, Dorothy explained. Don't say she seems fine. Say I've watched her balance her checkbook, coordinate her schedule, manage complex conversations, and navigate new technology. Give examples. Make it impossible for them to claim confusion. Eleanor squeezed my hand. You're going to win this, Ava. And even if the worst somehow happened, Dorothy added, her voice serious, even if they found a sympathetic judge who believed their nonsense, which won't happen, you'd appeal. You'd fight. You'd never stop fighting. Because that's what strong women do. I looked around at these women. Women who barely knew me 2 months ago. Women who had nothing to gain from helping me. Women who were showing up anyway. Why? I asked. Why are you all doing this? Because nobody helped me, Carmen said quietly. Nobody spoke up when my daughter was stealing from me. Nobody testified for me. I had to fight alone and it almost broke me. I swore if I ever saw another woman going through it, I'd be the help I wished I'd had. Maria nodded. And because you deserve better than what they're doing to you. You deserve to live your life free from manipulation and abuse. Also, Linda added with a slight smile, because we're angry on your behalf. What they're doing is disgusting and we want to watch them lose. Dorothy raised her coffee cup. To women who fight back. We all raised our cups. To women who fight back. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. In 3 days I would walk into a courtroom. My son would be there. His wife would be there. They would tell a judge that I was mentally incompetent, that I couldn't manage my own affairs, that I needed someone to control my life, and that someone would be Ian. I thought about the little boy who used to climb into my lap when he was scared, the teenager who'd called me crying when his first girlfriend broke his heart, the young man who'd hugged me at Thomas's funeral and whispered, "I love you, Mom." When had that person disappeared? Or had he ever really existed? Maybe I'd been seeing who I wanted to see instead of who was actually there. I cried that night. Really cried. Not angry tears. Not frustrated tears. Grief tears. I was grieving the son I thought I had. The dream of a loving family. The illusion that my unconditional love was reciprocated. I was grieving the fantasy. But somewhere in that grief, something else emerged. Iron determination. They were not going to do this to me. They were not going to take my autonomy, my dignity, my freedom. They were not going to legally steal what I'd refused to give them voluntarily. I was going to fight. And I was going to win. The morning of the hearing, I dressed in my best navy suit, did my makeup carefully, looked at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back at me had gray hair, wrinkles, age spots on her hands, but her eyes were clear, sharp, determined. I looked confident because I was. Mr. Parker picked me up at 8 o'clock. Ready, as I'll ever be. In the car, he reviewed the strategy one more time. The burden of proof is on them. They have to prove you're incompetent. We just have to prove you're not. And Ava, you're not. You're rational, articulate, and completely capable. Just be yourself on the stand. Tell the truth. Don't let them rattle you. What if the judge believes them? Judge Brown is fair. She's heard cases like this before. She knows what elder financial abuse looks like. But even beyond that, we have documentation. We have witnesses. We have Dr. Reynolds' evaluation. They have manipulation and false claims. The evidence is on our side. We pulled into the courthouse parking lot. Through the window, I saw Ian and Kim getting out of their car. Kim was wearing a black dress, looking somber, playing the part of the concerned daughter-in-law. Ian looked uncomfortable. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Good. He should be uncomfortable. We walked into the courthouse together, Mr. Parker, Eleanor, and me. The other women were meeting us inside. In the hallway outside the courtroom, I saw them all, Maria, Linda, Carmen, Dorothy. My army. Dorothy came over and hugged me. Today you're not just fighting for yourself. You're fighting for every woman who's been exploited by family. Every person who's been manipulated into believing they owe their abusers. Win this, and you win for all of us. No pressure, right? I tried to smile. She laughed. You've got this. The bailiff opened the doors. Family court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Brown presiding. We walked inside. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights. Judge Brown sat at the bench. Ian and Kim sat on one side with their attorney, Dr. Foster. I sat on the other side with Mr. Parker. And between us, everything. My munei, my freedom, my dignity, my life. Judge Brown looked at both sides. Let's begin. Dr. Foster stood first, smooth, professional, every inch the concerned family attorney. Your Honor, we're here today because a family is watching someone they love deteriorate mentally, and they're desperately trying to protect her before she harms herself, financially and personally. Mrs. Ava Campbell is 72 years old. Over the past several months, she's exhibited increasingly erratic behavior. She's cut off all contact with her only son. She's made irrational financial decisions. She's refused medical evaluation. She's isolated herself and become paranoid, installing excessive security measures. Her family isn't trying to steal from her. They're trying to save her from herself. I felt my chest tighten. He was good. He made me sound like a confused old woman slowly losing touch with reality. Mr. Parker stood. Your Honor, what Mr. Foster just described isn't mental decline. It's self-protection. Mrs. Campbell isn't erratic, she's rational. She hasn't cut off contact. She set boundaries. She hasn't made irrational financial decisions. She stopped being exploited. And she's not paranoid, she's safe. Over the next hour, we'll prove that this petition has nothing to do with concern and everything to do with money. Judge Brown nodded. Call your first witness, Mr. Foster. The petitioner calls Kim Harper Campbell. Kim walked to the stand. She looked perfect, composed, just the right amount of worried. She was sworn in. Dr. Foster began. Mrs. Campbell, can you describe your relationship with your mother-in-law? She's like a second mother to me. For 3 years we've been close. She's helped us when we needed it, and we've tried to be there for her, especially after she lost her husband. Lies, all lies, but smooth lies. And what changes have you noticed recently? She's become withdrawn, paranoid. She stopped returning our calls, cut off financial support without explanation, accused us of terrible things that aren't true. It's been devastating watching someone we love change like this. And the security cameras, she installed them everywhere, like she thinks someone's going to break in. It's not normal behavior for someone who used to be so trusting and open. Mr. Parker stood for cross-examination. Mrs. Campbell, you said Ava cut off financial support without explanation. Is that accurate? Yes. So she didn't mention being excluded from your wedding? Kim's face flickered, just for a second. That was a misunderstanding. The venue had limited. How many people attended your wedding? I don't remember exactly. Approximately. Maybe 40. 40 people, but not Ava. The woman who'd been paying your rent for 3 years wasn't special enough to invite. Is that correct? It wasn't like that. What was it like? We wanted an intimate ceremony, with 40 people. Mrs. Campbell, how many times in the past 3 years have you called Ava without needing money? Silence. Mrs. Campbell, I don't keep track of. Not even once. Not one single call just to check on her, ask how she was doing, see if she needed anything. We cared about her. Did you? Because for 3 years Ava paid your rent, $600 a month, every month, and you repaid that generosity by excluding her from your wedding and then telling her you only invited special people. Do you remember saying that? Kim's face went red. I was upset. I didn't mean. You meant it enough to say it. And then when she stopped paying your rent, you broke into her home with an attorney and tried to pressure her into signing power of attorney. Is that how you show concern? We were worried about her mental state. Or worried about your bank account. Objection. Dr. Foster stood. Argumentative. Sustained. Move on, Mr. Parker. He nodded. No further questions. Kim stepped down looking shaken. Dr. Foster called Ian next. My son walked to the stand. He still wouldn't look at me. Mr. Campbell, tell us about your mother. She used to be warm, loving, always there for me. But lately she's been different, erratic, cutting us off for no reason. We're worried about her. Has she been managing her finances appropriately? I don't think so. She's making irrational decisions, refusing family support, acting like we're trying to hurt her when we're just trying to help. Mr. Parker stood for cross-examination. Mr. Campbell, how much money did your mother give you over the past 3 years? Ian shifted uncomfortably. I'm not sure exactly. Mrs. Campbell has documentation showing $38,200 in direct transfers and payments. Does that sound accurate? She offered to help us. I'm sure she did. Now, Mr. Campbell, you're 36 years old, is that correct? Yes. And you work full-time? Yes. But you needed your 72-year-old mother to pay your $600 monthly rent. We were going through a hard time for 3 years. That's a very long, hard time. Mr. Parker paused. Mr. Campbell, how much did your wedding cost? I don't. Destination beach wedding, 40 guests, professional photography, catered reception. That's not cheap. Kim's parents helped. So you had money for a wedding but not for rent. And you planned this wedding for months. Vendor contracts require deposits months in advance, while still taking rent money from your mother. Is that correct? We were trying to. And then you didn't invite her to the wedding, your own mother, the woman who'd been supporting you financially for years. Ian's face crumpled. I wanted to invite her. Kim said what? Kim said that we should keep it small. 40 people is small, Your Honor. Dr. Foster stood. Is there a question here? Get to your point, Mr. Parker, Judge Brown said. Mr. Campbell, after your mother stopped giving you money, you broke into her home. Is that correct? I have keys. She gave them to me for emergencies. Was running out of rent money an emergency? We were trying to talk to her. You brought an attorney with you and spread her private papers across her kitchen table. You tried to coerce her into signing power of attorney. That's not talking. That's intimidation. I was worried about her. Were you worried about her mental health or your financial situation? Both. Really? Because you never expressed concern about her mental health when the checks were clearing every month. Your concern only appeared when the money stopped. Ian opened his mouth, closed it, said nothing. No further questions. Dr. Foster called Mr. Davis next. The hostile neighbor testified about security cameras and arguments and strange behavior. Mr. Parker's cross-examination was brutal. Mr. Davis, have you ever had a conversation with Mrs. Campbell? Well, no, but I've observed. So your testimony is based on what you've seen from across the street with no direct interaction and no understanding of context. I know concerning behavior when I see it. Do you have medical training? No. Psychiatric expertise? No. Any professional qualifications that would allow you to assess mental competency? Common sense. Common sense. I see. No further questions. Then Dr. Patterson took the stand, the psychiatrist they'd hired. He testified that my refusal to undergo psychiatric evaluation indicated defensive behavior consistent with awareness of declining faculties and fear of official diagnosis. It was smooth, professional, manipulative. Mr. Parker stood. Dr. Patterson, have you ever met Mrs. Campbell? No, but based on the documented behavior. So you're offering a psychiatric diagnosis of someone you've never met, never evaluated, never spoken to. I'm offering a professional opinion based on secondhand information from people with financial motivation to discredit her. Nothing further. Judge Brown called a 15-minute recess. In the hallway, Eleanor grabbed my hand. You're doing great. They're falling apart up there. Ian looked miserable. Good. He should be. When we returned, it was our turn. Mr. Parker called Mr. Wallace first. The pharmacist clearly explained how Kim had manipulated him into signing a false statement, then submitted his correction stating I'd never shown any signs of confusion or incompetence. Then Dr. Reynolds took the stand. She was magnificent. Explained her 2-hour evaluation in detail, my cognitive test scores all above average, my clear understanding of my finances, my situation, my rights. Her professional opinion that I was not only competent but functioning at an excellent level for my age. Dr. Reynolds, in your expert opinion, does Mrs. Campbell show any signs of dementia, cognitive decline, or impaired judgment? None whatsoever. She's sharp, rational, and completely capable of managing her own affairs. And her decision to stop financial support for her son? Completely rational. She recognized a pattern of exploitation and protected herself. That's not mental decline. That's healthy boundary setting. Dr. Foster tried to cross-examine, but Dr. Reynolds held firm on every point. Next came Mr. Harris from the bank. He testified about my years of responsible account management, my clear instructions about canceling transfers, my rational financial decisions. Then Eleanor, Maria, Linda, Carmen, and Dorothy, one by one. They took the stand and described spending time with me, my clarity, my independence, my active social life, my sharp mind. Dorothy was last. At 81, she commanded the courtroom. I've known women like Ava my whole life. Strong women who gave everything to their families and got exploitation in return. Ava isn't confused, she's awake. She's not erratic, she's self-protecting. And frankly, it's about time. Judge Brown actually smiled at that. Finally, Mr. Parker called me to the stand. I was sworn in. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. Mr. Parker asked me to explain what happened. All of it. I told the truth. The 3 years of support, the $38,200, the wedding exclusion, the special people comment, the unauthorized home entry, the attempted coercion, the social services complaint. Mrs. Campbell, why did you decide to stop financial support for your son? I looked directly at Judge Brown. Because I finally understood that what I was getting from them wasn't love. It was a commercial transaction disguised as a family relationship. I was paying for attention, and the moment I stopped paying, the attention disappeared. That's not a mother-son relationship. That's financial exploitation. And the security cameras? After they broke into my home and went through my private papers, I needed to feel safe in my own house. That's not paranoia. That's common sense. Are you capable of managing your own finances? Completely. I managed them for 40 years as a teacher. I managed them through my husband's death. I can certainly manage them now. Dr. Foster stood for cross-examination. Mrs. Campbell, don't you think it's harsh to cut off your own son? I think it's harsh for a son to sue his mother for control of her money. Your son loves you. If he loved me, I would have been at his wedding. Dr. Foster paused. He had no response to that. No further questions. I stepped down. Judge Brown looked at both attorneys. Closing statements. Dr. Foster went first. Painted me as a confused woman making irrational choices, surrounded by new friends feeding her paranoia, desperately needing family intervention before I harmed myself. Mr. Parker went second. Your Honor, this case is about money, plain and simple. For 3 years, Mrs. Campbell supported her son and daughter-in-law financially. She gave them $38,200. When she stopped, when she finally recognized the exploitation, they tried every method possible to regain access to her accounts. Emotional manipulation failed. Physical intimidation failed. False complaints failed. So now they're here asking this court to legally grant them what Mrs. Campbell wisely refused to give them voluntarily. This isn't about concern. This is about greed. And Mrs. Campbell deserves better than that. Judge Brown leaned back in her chair. I'm going to take a brief recess to review the evidence. We'll reconvene in 2 hours. 2 hours felt like 2 days. We sat in the hallway. Eleanor held my hand. Dorothy brought me water. Maria kept saying, "You did great up there." But I couldn't stop thinking about Ian's face on the stand. The way he looked when Mr. Parker asked about the wedding. He looked ashamed. Too little, too late. Finally, the bailiff called us back in. Judge Brown sat at the bench, reading glasses on, file open in front of her. I've reviewed all testimony and evidence presented today. I've considered the arguments from both sides, and I've reached a decision. My heart was pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. This court finds that Mrs. Ava Campbell is in full possession of her mental faculties. The evidence overwhelmingly demonstrates that she is rational, competent, and fully capable of managing her own financial and personal affairs. Her decision to cease financial support for her son and daughter-in-law was not erratic behavior. It was a reasonable response to a pattern of exploitation. I felt tears sting my eyes. Furthermore, this court finds that the petition for guardianship appears to be motivated by financial interest rather than genuine concern for Mrs. Campbell's well-being. The petitioners excluded Mrs. Campbell from their wedding while simultaneously accepting her financial support, then attempted to regain access to her finances through intimidation and false claims when she exercised her right to stop that support. Judge Brown looked directly at Ian and Kim. This behavior is not only morally reprehensible, it borders on elder financial abuse. If Mrs. Campbell chose to pursue charges, this court would fully support that action. Kim's face went pale. The petition for guardianship is denied completely and unequivocally. Mrs. Campbell will retain full control of all her assets and affairs. This court further orders that the petitioners are prohibited from contacting Mrs. Campbell without her express permission. She banged her gavel. Case dismissed. It was over. I'd won. In the hallway outside the courtroom, Eleanor hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe. You did it. You actually did it. Maria and Linda and Carmen and Dorothy crowded around, all talking at once, all celebrating. Mr. Parker shook my hand. You were excellent up there, Ava. Truly excellent. Thank you for everything. My pleasure. And remember, you have that restraining order now. If they contact you, call me immediately. I looked down the hallway. Ian and Kim were standing with Dr. Foster, who was packing his briefcase and clearly explaining something that neither of them wanted to hear, probably his bill. Kim looked furious. Her face was red, her jaw tight. She saw me looking and gave me a glare of pure hatred. Ian looked broken. He glanced back at me once. Something in his eyes might have been regret, but it was too late for regret. He'd chosen this path. He'd stood in that courtroom and tried to have his own mother declared mentally incompetent so he could take her money. There was no coming back from that. Mr. Foster finished talking and walked away. Kim grabbed Ian's arm and pulled him toward the exit. They didn't look back. I watched them go and I felt nothing. No grief, no anger, just relief. It was over. That night, Eleanor hosted a celebration at her house. All the women came. We drank champagne, good champagne, the kind I'd never let myself buy before because I was saving money for Ian's emergencies. Dorothy raised her glass. To Ava, who fought back, who won, who reclaimed her life. To Ava. We drank. You know what this means, right? Dorothy said, her eyes twinkling. You're free now. Completely free. Your money is yours. Your time is yours. Your life is yours. What are you going to do with it? I thought about that. For 3 years I'd put my life on hold. Delayed dreams, postponed plans, sacrificed my own happiness to fund someone else's present. Now finally I could live. Everything. I said, I'm going to do everything. 3 months later I sold my house. It was too big for one person. Too full of memories. Too connected to a past I was ready to leave behind. I bought a beautiful apartment downtown. Smaller, modern, with a balcony that overlooked the city. It felt like possibility. I took half of my remaining money, the life insurance that hadn't been drained by Ian and Kim, the pension Thomas left me, the proceeds from the house sale, and I donated it to organizations that protected elderly people from family abuse. Organizations that helped people like me. In memory of Thomas Campbell, I wrote on the donation forms, and in honor of every person who deserves to be loved for who they are, not what they have. With the other half, I started living. Really living. I booked a trip to Europe. Paris, Rome, London. All the places Thomas and I had always planned to see together. I went alone, but I wasn't lonely. I met other travelers, made friends, saw things that took my breath away. I took art classes. Watercolors, acrylics, figure drawing. I was terrible at first, but I didn't care. I was creating something just for me. I joined volunteer groups, read to kids at the library, delivered meals to homebound seniors, spent time with people who needed help. Real help, not financial exploitation. I bought nice clothes, got my hair done regularly, took care of myself. I invested in my future instead of someone else's present. And I never heard from Ian and Kim again. Not once. Through Eleanor, who heard from Mr. Harris at the bank, I learned they'd moved to a smaller apartment. Kim had gotten a job, her first real job, apparently. Ian had picked up extra hours. They were learning to support themselves. Maybe, the loss of easy money would teach them something. Maybe adversity would teach them what my generosity never could, the value of honest work, the pride of independence, the difference between love and transaction. Or maybe not. Either way, it wasn't my problem anymore. 6 months after the trial, I was sitting on my balcony watching the sunset. My phone rang. Unknown number. For a second, just a second, I wondered if it was Ian. It wasn't. It was Dorothy calling to invite me to her granddaughter's graduation party, her actual granddaughter, the one who hadn't tried to steal her money, the one she'd reconciled with after boundaries were set. I'd love to come, I said. Good. And Ava, bring a date if you want. There's a very nice gentleman in my building who keeps asking about you. I laughed. Dorothy, I'm 72. So what? You're alive, aren't you? Act like it. After we hung up, I sat there thinking about that. I was alive. For 3 years I'd been existing, waiting, hoping, sacrificing. Now I was living. I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago. The woman who thought love could be purchased, who confused generosity with connection, who measured her worth by how much she could give. That woman was gone. In her place was someone who understood a fundamental truth. True love never has a price, and freedom is never too expensive. Some nights, Sitting on my balcony looking at the stars, I think about Ian. I wonder if he thinks about me. If he regrets what he did. If he understands what he lost. Not my money. Me. He lost his mother. Not because she died, but because he killed the relationship with his own greed. That's a loss no amount of money can replace. And maybe that's the lesson he needed to learn. I finally learned the most important lesson of my life. The most important person I have to love and protect is myself. Not because I'm selfish, because I matter. My happiness matters. My dignity matters. My freedom matters. And no one, not even my own son, has the right to take those things from me. I spent 3 years paying for an illusion. Now I'm spending the rest of my life living in truth. And the truth is beautiful. The truth is mine. And the truth has set me free.